Once again, I think my live is going on. We'll check it out. Yeah, guys. So yeah, we will start. Is it working? Yeah, it is working. Because this is the first time I'm doing my live, so I don't know what's happening here. Okay, fine. So guys, in this video series, or we can say in the Spring Boot series, that we are going to see how to create application and why we need a REST API, why we need Spring Boot application, and how we can able to connect with our database. So specifically like MySQL database and all these things we are going to see one by one. Okay, let me change to the webcam thing. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen as well. So in the screen, I'm clearly explain about what are the things that we are going to see in the Spring Boot actually. Okay, so the topics to be covered in this live stream is nothing but use of Spring Boot, why we need a REST API, what is controller service model and repository, and how we can able to create a REST API and how to connect the MySQL database with our Spring Boot application. Okay, all these things we are going to see one by one. And if you have any doubts, you can just post in the comments. If I have, if I see that, I will reply it. And if you have any doubts, maybe after the live stream, you can just post on the comments. I will reply it as soon as I can see. Okay, fine. So what is REST API or why we need a REST API? Okay, I hope you can able to see this thing. So when it comes to REST API, we have the server, right? In the server, we can able to get the data, but in before the REST API came, all the data has to be retrieved using the monolithic architecture. Monolithic architecture means both web pages and then servers will be deployed in the same screen. Okay, to avoid this scenario, which means, for example, we have the mobile application, or we can say when the mobile application started coming to the market, they want to connect with the server. Okay, but that time if we have that monolithic architecture, like everything will be in the same server, means if mobile application wants to show the data, it's not possible because of the API architecture which they have initially developed. So for example, mobile applications developed the application in the mobile itself, just they need to get the data from the database, they don't need the entire application, right? Mobile application means we will install the application, only the data will be retrieved from the server. So in that scenario, I am not expecting the entire web page from the server. I am just extracting the data from the server. Okay. So that the reason, so server they have now they want to split this architecture, which means as a front end architecture in the back end architecture. So front end architecture is nothing but the Angular, React, or anything. In the backend architecture, they are having a Java REST API and the Node.js, PHP, or Python, .NET. So these are all the languages which helps us to create a REST API. So now you understood why we need a REST API, right? REST API means it can be consumed by any consumer, which means it can be mobile application, or it can be any web application, or any other devices you want to connect. Then so whoever has the permission to access the API, they can able to get the data. This is the main scenario in terms of REST API. Okay, so now in this video we are going to see, as we all know, that we are going to develop how to develop a REST API using a Java Spring Boot application. Okay, and one more thing, here we are not going to see like Java basics and all, we are directly dive into the Spring Boot applications. Okay, fine. So I hope you people know what is REST API, and this is the advantage of Spring Boot. Moreover, I shared this slide in my Git repository. If you want, you can use it, and I will post this slide in my website also, which is called sripravin.in, where you can able to get all of my this slide in the website itself. In my personal website itself, you can able to get that. Fine. So now we will see the Spring Boot architecture. I think it is visible for you, right? So it's a Spring Boot architecture. Maybe I will increase zoom percentage. Okay, now you can see the clearly about the Spring Boot architecture. Okay, so when it comes to Spring Boot architecture, the first layer is nothing but the controller. I think most of the programming languages will have the same, which is called a controller. So controller is responsible for to get the request or to send the response to the client. So client is nothing but, it can be browser, it can be mobile application, or it can be anything. Whoever is requesting something from the server, they are considered to be the client actually. Okay, so now this client is requesting to the controller with the request. It can be it should be by the HTTP or HTTPS protocol. Okay, so now we are passing the data to the controller, and this controller, what it will do, it just checks the request has necessary parameters and all. If we want, we can add that validation also. Like validation means, for example, whenever we are trying to register account, it just validate like whether you have a proper email address and whether your password matching the criteria. Like it should be minimum 8 characters, one special character, one number, one capital letter, right? All these validations can be added in the controller itself. Okay, now this is the controller. From this part, our Spring Boot application will start. So client is not, we are going to worry. we are going to worry only the controller part. So controller is nothing but our the first part. It's like a gateway of our application. Okay, now from the controller it goes to the service layer. Service layer is nothing but the main business logics will be written in the service layer only. Okay, whatever the logic that we want to write, that has to be written on the service layer. The service layer, from this service layer we can able to connect with the database. So which means we cannot directly connect to the database as per the service layer. First, if you depends on the action, we have to find the appropriate way. For example, if you want to do any write operation like update, insert or delete, then what we need to do, we need to go with the repository. Repository is nothing but it's responsible for to execute queries on the database. Okay, this is only in the Spring Boot architecture. So the repository is nothing but it's responsible for to execute the queries in the database. So the service layer will call the repository to do some certain operations in the database. Now what is the model? Model is nothing but it's like a object relational model. So which means mapping, sorry, it's a mapping. So which means whatever the table that we are having in the table, that will be created as objects. For example, I am having a user table, right? User table, it's a database I'm mentioning. User table has the like 3 fields: ID, name, email. So now for each column I need to create a appropriate field in the ORM, which is called user class anything. Okay, that we will see later. So this is what about the model. Model is like for each table we will have one model, and that model will have appropriate repository. The repository is responsible to execute queries in the database. Mainly model is for to setting the data, or we can say binding the data from the database, and we can reuse it. Whatever the data that we are getting in the model, that will be shared to service layer. From the service it goes to the controller, then controller will share this as a response to the client. Okay, this is what about the Spring Boot architecture. Fine. So now we will go for the how to create a Spring Boot application. Now I hope you know what is the architecture for the Spring Boot, right? So controller, service, model, repository, and then database. Okay, first is about the client. Client is nothing but who is giving the request to our application. Okay, so in case if you have any queries or anything, you can just post in the comments. You can post in the live chat as well, and I will reply it. And one more thing, if you have any, in case if it is not live, you can post in the comments also. I will reply you. Fine. So now go to the, we will see like how to create a Spring Boot application. Okay, so Spring Boot application, if you want to create, it's absolutely free. But still, if you are using some tool to create application, that is also fine. And if you are already good in how to create application, that is also fine. In case if you don't know how to create a Spring Boot application, go to the website called start.spring.io. Okay, so this UI you will get it. Okay, and one more thing, as per the current Spring Boot thing, which means that library, we need to use Java 17. Okay, so in case if you are using a Java 8, I think for the Java 8 also it has some issue in terms of dependency. We need to change some dependencies in order to work. So better if you are started learning now, then better option is that you can download Java 17 in your system, which means JDK 17. I hope you people know how to install JDK and all these things. If you don't know, just I will tell you that 1 minute. So go to the Oracle websites and create an account here. They will not be allowed for, they will not, without account they will not allow you to download. I don't know what they are going to do with that. Okay, so now go down. I think there will be a products, right? Click, just click on the product. In the here you have the option called Java. Just click on the Java, and as I mentioned, it is must that you should create the account here. So once you have the account, if you come down, they will. I think you will have the option of selecting the Java versions. 1 second. Yeah, I think, okay, yeah, I think already I have logged in my account. Oh, it's not there. Okay, fine. Okay, so now I think you need to select either JDK 21 or 17, and if you want to download the older versions also, they will show you like 8, 11 and all these things. So better try to download the 17 itself, and that would be easy, and it is free to use for learning purposes and students. So you don't need to worry about all these things. Just select your operating system. I'm using Mac here, and I had downloaded the version yesterday itself, which is, I think I was using, I'm using JDK 17, which I configured yesterday only. Okay, and if you are using a JDK 8 or 11, I don't think so. Spring Boot might throw some error. It's not able to fix or something. It can fixable, but better we can go for JDK 17 itself. No, that's all. Okay, fine. So now let me close this. So this is how we have to download the Java. Now go back to our Spring Boot application. Okay, so in the Spring Boot application, I am just selecting a Gradle, which is a build tool that I am going to use it for a Spring Boot application. Then I am using a Java here. As usual, the language I am going to use Java. and the default snapshot version is 3.1.5 I'm using. I didn't change anything. Now in the group I'm going to mention as YouTube. I'm mentioning here. Okay, I will mention like October 2023 is the package name that I'm mentioning. Demo is nothing but October 2023 I will mention. Name is also I'm mentioning October 2023, and the demo project also I will mention like Spring Boot 2023, and then package name. Okay, I think I will use that group name is package name. I don't know what to use. Okay, and then packaging is jar. I think jar are most all the same only. Then here I'm by default it's selected JDK 17, so I am also using JDK 17. In case if you are using a JDK 11 or 21, try to select the same actually here. Okay, so now click on generate. I hope it just downloads the application in my system, and as we know I'm using one repository in my system. I'm using the same repository. One second guys, I think it's a blog post code. Okay, the reason why I'm choosing some folder is because this folder is already synced with my repository. So whenever I'm doing a change, I will push the code to my repository, and the same repository I will share it in the YouTube URL where you can able to download the source code also. But I did one mistake. Okay, the mistake is I need to add the dependency. So here, yeah, one more thing. So here I will add the dependency, which is called a REST repository. Okay, dependency is nothing but it's nothing adding the library for our project. Whatever the dependency that we want to add, we can mention it here. Okay, so now and then I can go for web. Where is the web? Okay, it came here. Okay, so now we are having a REST repository and web actually. Still we need to do two things. One is database connection, another one is MySQL driver. I will add as soon as possible. So which means one is MySQL driver, as you can see here. Next one is JPA actually. Okay, JPA driver. So these two things I am adding to my project. It is must that we should add it, but I without adding I just download the project. Okay, now I will replace the downloaded file. I'm clicking one more generate, and I'm going to replace it. Save. I will replace it because I don't want to use the existing one. So let it be replaced. Okay, it is. I think it's getting replaced. Now go to our the directory where I have stored my project. It's a Spring Boot, and this is the zip file that which we have downloaded now. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just right click and I will extract this project here. Okay, so now it is extracted. Let me go to the IntelliJ. So where is the IntelliJ? I didn't open. Okay. Okay, so I have already opened one Spring Boot project, but I don't want to use that. So now I am going to open the project which we have downloaded. So in order to open a new project, click on the open, and we have the option to select our project. Yes. So now I need to go to the folder where I have downloaded it. So this one, this one, this one, this one. Okay. So open, and as soon as I have opened, I am opening this window itself. As soon as I am opening this application, right, it will take time to download all the dependencies. As you can see here, it is taking some time to download the dependency. That is because it is downloading some more, some Maven configuration, Maven repository. From the Maven repository, it just downloads all the necessary dependencies to run my project. Because this repository is nothing but that which we have added during the project creation, right? So all these dependencies downloading to my system using the Gradle repository. Okay, in my repository, so it is getting configured. Okay, fine. So now go for I think before that we will see the project layer in our Spring Boot application, guys. Okay, so when it comes to the project directory, what you are seeing here, it has the basic directory like Gradle.idea, all these things. So all these things are to simple library for our project. So we don't need to worry about all these things. And go to the SRC directory, which is called source directory. It has two subfolders. One is main, one is test. So main is nothing but the folder where we are going to write our code, and we have the one more file called test. If you want to write unit test cases, then we can use this one. But I'm not going to write any unit test cases as of now. Maybe we will see one more video to write the unit test cases. Okay. So here I am having a main, which is called main folder, where we need to write the code. And if you expand it, we have the two folders. One is called Java folder, another one is called resource folder. Okay, resource folder is specifically for to create a HTML file. In case if you want to create a HTML file, we can go for the resource folder. But as of now, I am not going to create any HTML because now we are going to use a REST API, right? So we don't need to use any resource folder. But this resource folder had one more file called application property file. So what this application property file will do, if we want to create a environment specific constant means, for example, like you know what is UAT, SIT and all these things, right? Development environment. So each stage is like a development stages. So if you want to create some environment level property, then we can mention this file. And apart from this, if you want to create application which is country specific, for example, you want to develop an application for US, UK, India, and then China, Singapore, country specific application means that type of configuration also that we can mention in the application property file. But as of now, I am not going to do all these things. I am directly going to use this application for the database configuration. So I am not going to create any application specific or location specific configurations. I am going to mention only the database specification. Okay, so in case if you want to create a database, we know we need to provide our server name and then username, password, port number, database name, right? So all these things we can provide in the application property file. Okay, because we already added the MySQL driver as well as Gradle, JPA repository, right? So in order to for this differences, we need to provide the database details. Without database details, if you are trying to run the project, it will not run. It will not run. So it is must that we should provide the database configuration. So what is the database configuration means? I will mention yours here. MySQL Spring Boot connection. I will go to the documentation of the Spring Boot. Yeah. So they will tell you like what are all the default configuration we need to provide in order to connect the MySQL. Okay, this is the MySQL configuration. Copy this one and go to the our Spring Boot application property file. Just to paste it. Okay, this is the default one. Okay, so I have configured MySQL in my system already, and I hope you people also should configure MySQL. If you don't know how to install MySQL, just go to the mysql.com. You can download the MySQL based on like how we can able to configure other software. Right? For like the same way, you can download the MySQL in your system and configure with the necessary password and username. It is free to use. There is no price or commercial or anything. You can just download as per the configuration, and they will tell you like what are the default configurations. But now in my system, I am already having a workbench, which is the default editor to connect the MySQL server. And yes, so this is my workbench. My MySQL is already running because it's always running in my system behind the screen. Fine. So now what I can do is I'm already having a database called October 2023. So this database I am going to connect with my Spring Boot application. So I don't want to create anything newly. I just giving the database name as the connection name in my IntelliJ. So this is the actual name, database name that I'm going to connect. And here I'm providing a localhost is the server name. Localhost is nothing but the local server which is running in my system. In case if you are using any other external server means then you need to provide the IP address here. But as of now I am using the localhost in my system itself, so I am using this one. And then this update, I don't want to use this one. I will mention as a none because it will just regenerate the system. And username, I will use root, and password, I don't provide anything. And then JDBC driver anything on this one. That's it. Okay, this is the base configuration in order to connect the database with our Spring Boot application. Okay, so now save the file, and I hope everything is fine. Just we will start our application. Just check whether everything is working fine or not. Okay, so to do that, just expand Java. And this is the main application. This main application will be created along with our project itself, so we don't need to do any manual work. So still now what I have done is I am just giving a database configuration in the application property file. Apart from this, I didn't do anything. So now go to the application, this one. So here right click and there is a run. You know how to run the Java class, right? The same way by default as it is main class, we can run it. But this is a one-time run because once you run the this class, automatically this class will be shown in the IntelliJ, so we don't need to worry. This is like a one-time process only. Just right click on the class, do the run. It just performs all the necessary operations for you. And if you have any error or any wrong dependency means it will throw you the error in the console itself. If you don't have anything and if it is working fine, you can get the appropriate output. I hope we are getting an appropriate output now. Yeah, our application is successfully launched in my system. As you can see here, the application is running on port number 8080. So you should also get the same output in case if you are working or if you are creating a Spring Boot application. In case if you are not getting this output, then somewhere you are having an issue. Okay, fine. So now go to our Spring Boot application. Go to the browser and click on localhost. Okay, our application is running on 8080 server. Generally, Spring Boot application is running on 8080. So 8080, click on that one. As you can see here, I am getting this output. This clearly shows that our Spring Boot application is working fine without any issues. Okay, in case if you are having any error or if it is not working fine, that will be shown here. But now I am getting the proper output, which shows that our application is working fine actually. Okay, that's it. So I think now it's time to go for our creating the API. We can go, right? Yes, we can go. But before that, I don't know whether the live is working or not. Fine, we will go through the next. Okay, so now go to the Spring Boot architecture. As per the PPT, I have shown you this controller service model, right? The same architecture I am going to develop in the Java packages actually, which means go to the controller, which means here, this is the default package that I have provided, right? So in the same package, I am going to create one default package called controller. Okay, controller, and some other packages also, which means the next package is nothing but service. Next package is I am going to create a model. Next package is I am going to create a request. This package is mainly used for to create a POJO classes for the request processing. This does not have any business logic at all. Just to create a POJO classes, maybe instead of request we can say the appropriate name is we can say DTO. DTO stands for data transfer object, and this data transfer object does not have any business logic or anything. This is just for to create a POJO class to transfer the object. From the name itself we will understand this is called data transfer object, right? Just click on refactor, it just performs this one. Okay, so this is how we can perform that. This is the default packages. And one more thing, repository is the main thing, right? So repository, SITORY, yes. So now the base architecture is ready for our Spring Boot application. So now here we need to create a Java classes to perform the operations. Okay. So now we will create one simple controller called user controller. Okay. So user controller. Okay. Generally the name is like our wish. We can mention whatever you want, but people prefer to use this user controller, which means from the name itself we will understand this is like a controller class. Okay. So in case if you are generically mentioned as user, means it may not be understand like after 1 year or maybe after tomorrow also, if you want to understand the file you cannot understand, correct? So if you are just having a user controller, means it will be easy for us to understand the appropriate file. This file is specifically for the controller. Okay. Now most of the Spring Boot applications that we are going to use annotations only, so we don't need to worry about any logic or anything. The main advantage of using the Spring Boot applications is like that we can use the annotations. Okay, so now here we can use this annotation called REST controller. What this REST controller will do, this will help us to make this class as a REST controller. So I am just mentioning this annotation called REST controller. Okay, so without these annotations, if you are trying to create a just class, will not be enough. In order to create appropriate REST controller, we should mention this annotation. Okay, so now go to this place. I am creating a Java simple method. You know how to create Java method, right? So here I will mention like public string get name. Okay, this is the method I am creating. As we know, whenever we are mentioning the return type as string, from the Java we should mention the string, right? We can say sample. Okay, so this one we need to mention appropriately this one. So which means this is like a normal Java only. So if you know the basics Java, this will not take that much time to understand. So this is like a normal Java method. Okay, so now I am going to create an endpoint. What is endpoint, or we can say what is URL endpoint? So generally I will add a comment here, localhost 8080/get user. Okay, so here the first part, localhost/8080 is a server name, so we don't need to worry about all these things. But the next part after the slash, we have the /get user, means this is the endpoint that where it has to reach. So this one automatically this will be resolved by our Spring Boot application. But this portion, the second portion or the second after the slash, that we need to mention where it has to go. Okay, so that can be done only on this place. So here we need to mention there is a get mapping. What this get mapping will do, whatever the request comes to our application with the HTTP method called get, this will be automatically come here. We can mention a get user. It can be anything, whatever the endpoint that you want to create. I'm just mentioning here. So here I'm mentioning a get username is the URL that I'm creating here. Okay, so the reason why I'm using get mapping is there is a major two HTTP mappings are available. I'm mentioning here. Okay, HTTP mappings. We can say HTTP methods is the appropriate name. Okay, THODS. Okay. Okay. So what these HTTP methods will do? There is a get, post, put, delete. Okay, these are all the major methods available in the. Okay, there's one more thing. Patch. PATCH. Okay. I will mention. Okay, so this get, what this get will do, this is specifically for the main definition of this get is to get the data from server. Okay, so this is what the get method. So post means this is for post the data to server. Okay, so put and patch, put is for update the data, and this will also do the same thing, but this is for single or update. We can say I'm just mentioning update the data, but this has some other definition. But generally both will use for put and patch is for update the data, but we can say here update the row. We can say the next one is only for the particular column. Okay, so delete means delete the record. Okay, so this is what the different mappings: get, post, put, patch, delete. This is like international standard, so you don't need to worry about whether this is specifically for the Spring Boot application or not. Okay, so this get is nothing but to get the data from server. Again, this are all the definitions that can be given by the general definitions. Even if you want to post the data in the get, that is also possible. Which means like if you want to send the data, that is also possible. But generally, people prefer to use get to get the data from server. Post means like we want to send the data, like login, registration. Login means we need to pass our username and password. Registration means we need to pass our name, email, password, mobile number, address, and all these things, right? Put means you want to update the record. For example, for maybe like update the password. Patch means like you want to update only the name or email particular record against the user. Delete means you want to delete the account. So each functionality depends on each functionality. We can go for each mapping. Okay, fine. So now I'm just returning the data, which is called sample. I am not going to do any complex logic here. I'm just having a controller here, and it does not have any business logic, so I don't need any service or model or anything. I'm just returning a string here. Okay, maybe instead of sample, I will mention hello world. This is a standard, right? Okay, so now let me restart the application and check whether it is working fine or not. And one more thing, only this get we can directly check from the browser. If you want to use post, put, patch, delete means it cannot be directly execute from browser. We need a JavaScript support, or we have to use some other tool. Okay, so as of now we don't have any JavaScript code and all these things. So for this thing, if you want to use post, put, patch, delete, if you want to test it from the browser, we cannot do it. Okay, for this thing I'm going to use a tool called Postman, and this is free to use. You can also use this tool as well. If you don't know how to use this tool, I think most people know this tool is. If you don't know, just go to Google, just for check for Postman, and you have the option to download it. And let me check here. Postman. 1 second, guys. Postman.com/download. Okay, as you can see here, it is free to use, and you can download it in your system. You can open it immediately. Okay, it is never be a charge and all these things. If you want to use a team, I think you may need to give a price. Fine. So this Postman is already configured. I hope you people know why we are using Postman, because by default our HTTP methods like put, post, patch, delete cannot be executed from direct browser. We need to use JavaScript support, or we need to use some forms. But as of now, I am not going to use all these things. We are going to create a REST API. So best thing is we can go for the Postman itself. Okay. So now come to this endpoint which we have created. Okay. How to access this endpoint? As we all know, our Spring Boot application is running on the port number 8080, which is nothing but localhost colon 8080 slash get username. Okay. So if you provide this URL, we will get the hello world output. This is what we are going to test it now. So copy this URL, open the Postman. Okay, so this Postman is ready to use. Close the unnecessary pop-up in the Postman. Now close the this also. This is like some history that I have worked on. Okay, so now this is the tab. It's like a browser only, but it will not show you the exact output of the web page. It just gives you the exact data. Okay, localhost 8080/get username. Normally, generally, like how we are providing the URL in the browser, right? Here also we can go for this one, but here we need to mention the get here. The get is nothing but the URL name here, and just send the request here. I can get the output called hello world, which is working fine, which means our output is working fine from this hello world is coming from our Spring Boot application. Okay, shall I do one more thing? I am giving a wrong URL like this. Okay, sorry, wrong URL, which means this endpoint is not at all available in my Spring Boot application. So let me click on the send. I am getting an error here, which is called 404. You know what is 404, right? 404 means that URL is not available. So we are getting this issue. Okay, so this is how we can create a simple REST API. And now I am creating a POST API also. Okay, so with the same endpoint, I am creating a POST API. Post mapping with the same URL, but this is not the appropriate one. This is not the appropriate name as well. As per the Java, we need to mention the one more name here. Okay, fine. So here also I can mention, maybe the only change I will mention like hello world post. Okay, this is hello world get. That's it. Okay, fine. So now let me restart the server, because whenever we are doing a code change, we need to restart the server. There is some differences there. Automatically it will get restarted, but now I am not using. Maybe I will configure it later. Okay. Go to started, and as we know, we need to mention post here because this is a post method, and get username. Enter here. I am getting a hello world post. This output is coming from this place. The same way, when I changing it to get, we will get the hello world get. So I never change anything in the URL, but whenever I am changing the HTTP method type, automatically it just points to the appropriate method. This is the advantage of using the HTTP method. Okay, in case if you want to do a common URL with the different operations, then we can just use the this type of mapping. Okay, so only when you are having common operation. In case if you are having a different operation, then we should have a different endpoint. This is just for your understanding. I'm just showing here. Okay, the same way I can go for put mapping and delete mapping also. The patch I will not showing because generally people will not prefer. I'm just mentioning a put mapping. The way how we are using mapping, right? We can create for patch and all these things. And here also I will mention like delete mapping. Okay. So yes, as you can see here, I didn't change any URL. I just changed the Java method name. Here we can like put name. We can mention like delete name. Okay, all these things just for your understanding. And instead of post, I will mention like put. Here I will mention like delete. That's it. Okay. So each method is having the same common URL, but the mapping is getting different for each method. That's it. Okay, and the spell mistake. Maybe instead of get, I can just mention the user is enough, right? Yeah, this would be appropriate one. Okay, get. Here also I will mention the same thing. Post user, put user, delete user. Okay, so this is how it just performs this one. Okay, so now let me restart the server as we have done the change. So now how we are going to access the URL is localhost/user with the get, localhost/user with the post, localhost/user with the put, localhost with the /user of use delete. So for each mapping, it gives you the separate output. Now go to the Postman, and we need to provide the user. Get means it gives you the get. Post means it gives you the post. Put means it gives you the put. The same way delete and send the request, it gives you delete. So for each request, it performs in a different way, and we can get the appropriate output. Okay. So guys, I think this 30 minutes live is enough. Maybe in the next live, I will tell you how to connect the database and do the service logic and all these things. Okay.